So, Jonathan, earlier, I think it was last week, a reporter for the Milwaukee Brewers punched a rival station's reporter at a Cubs and Brewers game. So, I want to ask you, which NFL draft analyst on Twitter would you choose to punch in the face if you could? You know there's somebody you have in mind, so you gotta break it here.
Um, I'm just gonna go with popular choice probably among draft Twitter. I'm gonna go with Greg Gabriel because that dude just comes off as an asinine, like narcissist, and I can't deal with that kind of vibe. Just not a big fan of Greg Gabriel.
Nice, I like it. Mine would be DJ. Let's get loaded. Welcome to the Loaded Box Podcast.
Where the Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
You took the easy way out.
I had to push it up on you. I still think I'm the Eagles fan just a little bit.
You took the easy way out. Nice. I am Ben Morgan. This is the Loaded Box Podcast. I am without DJ Primo today because he's going to see if he has any better luck conquering New Orleans than I did the last time I was there, when Bourbon Street pretty much proceeded to derail me for about a month. But as you heard in the intro, I am joined by Jon Valencia of the Breaking Football website to preview the top wide receivers in this year's NFL draft. So, Jon, first, thanks for coming on, and why don't you go ahead and tell people where they can find your work and what you're doing and how they can go about finding it.
Just want to say thanks for having me on again. It was a lot of fun last year talking to defensive linemen. This year switching it up to the other side of the ball. So I'm happy about that. Getting some visiting guys in. But you can find my work at breakingfootball.com and also my Twitter handle at Jon Valencia DF.
Awesome. Sounds good. Jon also joined us for our 32-person first-round mock that we recently did that can be found on our website, loadedboxpodcast.wordpress.com. He actually had one of my favorite picks in the draft. I talked about that on the last podcast we did. Jon, why don't you go ahead, talk about your pick, tell who it was, and why you liked that fit so much.
So actually, I got placed with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and my target the whole time was Lamar Jackson. And luckily, he slipped right into my lap at 29th overall, and I think that's a perfect fit. That's my dream fit in this draft. If I could pick any player to go to any team, that's what I would select. Blake Bortles just really not getting the job done. I mean, he's been adequate at times, but overall he's probably a low-end starter. If that, bringing Lamar Jackson, a fresh face, most dynamic quarterback you'll ever find. I don't want to say you'll ever find, but he's rare, man. Like Michael Vick was obviously strong comparisons to him just because their athletic ability is so special. I don't get the Lamar Jackson hate. I mean, he showed him progression from his sophomore season, I believe it was, when Heisman, to now his junior season. I thought his progressions were a lot better. He saw the field a lot more. I love how he hits up the seam, great on the seam passes. Has to improve a little bit, working outside the numbers, but I think over the middle of the field, you get that RPO, and he's just going to eat all day. And I think the Jaguars, with Leonard Fournette and that just pretty much young team, I think that vibe they give off, that competitiveness, that scrappiness, I think he would fit very well conducting that team.
Yeah, my favorite thing that you said in the write-up that you did for it was it's just a matter of time before they hand over the keys. And I think that's perfect. If he were to fall there, there's not that immediate pressure where he has to be the franchise savior. They were already in the championship game with Bortles, and now you're saying that Bortles can still be the starter. Maybe he plays another year or two, and then if Bortles does well, fine. You have a trade piece. Look what the Patriots did with Garoppolo. If Bortles struggles, boom, you throw in Lamar Jackson, and like you mentioned, he's maybe not the best polished quarterback right now, but he steps into the league and becomes like one of the top 10 just versatile threats that you can't really game plan against that well. So love the pick. Like I said, if you missed that article, be sure to check it out. But like I said, we got Jon on here to talk some wide receiver NFL draft prospects. We're going to go through Jon's top 10. So why don't you go ahead and kick it off with who you have at number 10?
Will do. I hate to be predictable with rankings. It's not something I particularly shy away from. If I see a player in grades number one, I'm going to put him there. So number one, as most people have, I have Calvin Ridley there. Just a classic C receiver, the flanker. Wins off the line pretty much on just on his own will. Great clean releases, very technically sound. You're not going to really see him make those big contested catches deep downfield, but he's a deep threat. He can really attack you in all three phases of the field, and I just think he's the safest receiver in this draft, and I thought that pretty much immediately after evaluating, these top 10 guys. I think from all along he was the safest guy. I don't think he has particularly the highest ceiling, but I think over his career, he can carve out maybe 3 or 4 1,000-yard seasons, just be a productive player.
Yeah, you switched it up on me there. You went with number 1 instead of number 10. Which is
no,
it's totally fine. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that Calvin Ridley wasn't your number 10 guy.
Oh no,
but,
yeah, I'm sorry. I thought we were just going straight down. Yeah, I guess it would make more sense doing it the other way, building the suspense.
Well, hey, we already killed it. Calvin Ridley's your number 1. Let's just keep going that way. But I'll chime in a little bit between each pick as well. I'm with you on Ridley. He'd be my number 1 as well. I really buy into that theory that the quarterback play and the offensive philosophy is what held Ridley back statistically. I don't really care that he's not the fastest or that he didn't test all that well at the combine. I personally love receivers that are great route runners, and that's exactly what Ridley is. So I'll ask you this. Since the ability to catch the ball is obviously the receiver's primary job, I'm going to leave that one out. But how do you rank the importance of these 3 things? Number 1, route running. Number 2, speed. And number 3, separation at the line.
Number 1, I have to go route running. Creating separation just in your routes, in your breaks, that you build up your stems, that whole repertoire you need as a receiver. That's key. I think that's the most important trait a receiver can have, honestly. On my grading scale, I actually grade route running and the same. So those are both my top 2 traits. But out of the ones you listed, you said route running, separation off the line, and what was the other one? Speed.
Yeah, speed.
I probably would go speed number 2. It's close though, and then release. Also separation off the line would come in at number 3 for me between those 3 traits.
Are you concerned at all about his age, the anti-Ridley crowd? That's their number 1 thing they always bring up. It doesn't bother me. Are you concerned with that at all?
I'm really not. He's a polished player. I think he's a plug and play. I mean, in this wide receiver class, you're not going to really get a true number 1. So Ridley, I think he could be a top tier number 2 wide receiver in the NFL, and I mean that's really the best thing out of this class, I think.
All right, I'm with you right there on Ridley. I think you're going to blow some people's minds here with your number 2. So since we're going this way, who do you have ranked second?
Is it blowing people's minds? Okay, I'll go with that. DJ Moore, I think he's one of the highest ascending players, or at least he has been over the past month or two, in terms of wide receivers at least. I see a lot of Golden Tate in him. I don't make comparisons too often, but that's a comparison I've seen thrown around a bit regarding DJ Moore, and I definitely saw that when I was watching his tape. Just a really scrappy dude. He's not going to let anyone outwill him. He's going to play 100% at all times. I love his smooth route running, just a smooth runner in general. You get him after the catch, he's going to tear you up in space. And I really do think he has a higher ceiling than Calvin Ridley. Both players kind of were derailed by poor quarterback play. DJ Moore had 6 different quarterbacks at Maryland this past year, but he showed up, he produced, and he made a name for himself, and now he could be a first-round pick. Who knows?
Right, and I actually want to apologize because I had a different player written down for your number 2. So
I think I might have switched it up on you. I'm sorry for the communication. I did some last-minute adjustments, and I think I might have switched it up, but the player I had at 2 is now at 3.
All right, fair enough.
This
Well,
is going to blow some people's minds.
yeah, that next one will blow your mind. Back to DJ Moore. You said you see a lot of Golden Tate in him, and I wouldn't disagree with that. A lot of the people that you read have comparisons to Stephon Diggs. Do you think that comparison is warranted, or is that literally just because of the simple Maryland connection?
I think that that could be part of it, just people not even realizing, but I think that you can make that comparison. They're both real scrappy, as I said, both real physical at the catch point. They're a little bit, I don't want to say they're short on the shorter side, but they're not 6'1". I don't think Diggs is, at least they're both around 5'10", 5'11". But Moore and Diggs are just both competitive as hell. They're just tremendous players. I think that I like that comparison a little bit too.
Gotcha. All right, let's go on to number 3 and see if maybe this one will blow people's minds. Because I agree, a lot of people have DJ Moore as their top-ranked receiver.
Right. That's why I was kind of confused at first, but it all makes sense now. But I think my number 3 and 4 are actually going to shock some people. But number 3, Dante Pettis. I don't know if you guys are aware with Brad Kelly, does tremendous work. He's my go-to guy for wide receiver evaluations. He actually has Dante Pettis number 1, so take that for what it's worth. But not David Pettis, world-class athlete, man. Like, his testing is off the charts. He didn't perform at the combine, but I believe he participated not at the Washington pro day, but a couple weeks later he held a workout, I believe. It's punt return extraordinary. Like, this guy leads the college leading punt return touchdown leader. Has the route running, makes the contested catches. Pretty good hands from what I've seen. I think he's that perfect number 2 wide receiver. You know, he's pretty good at everything, but he's not gonna overshadow anyone else in any particular area of his game. And then the durability, you know, that's kind of a concern heading into the next level. That leg injury he suffered, and really want to see him add some weight. You know, 186 pounds, according to Mark Jarvis's draft database. That's pretty skimpy.
Right. It really is. I also believe like all but one, I think he had 7 touchdowns last year, and I think all but one of them came in the matter of 2 games. So not really consistent with the touchdowns. What part of his game makes you believe that he can develop that consistency? Because that's what he's going to need to be on the field at the next level.
Right. I just think just his pure athleticism that can carry him in this league, honestly. He has the mindset where, you know, I was actually at the UW Pro Day I guess it was about a month ago now, but I was there with LJ Cheney. I don't know if you guys follow him at Pacific Scouting, but he's my go-to guy for like UW and info and stuff. And he was saying that some scouts are turned off by Pettis' personality because he kind of comes off as like soft, not like that alpha male, you know. But Pettis, just not to get off topic, but yeah, just world-class athlete, tremendous, sink his hips with the best of them, tremendous agility. Just he can beat you in so many ways.
Nice. So that was 3, I believe. Let's check out number 4.
Number 4, man, he was such a letdown at the combine. He was my number 1 wide receiver throughout the entire season. I don't like to let the combine kind of affect grades too much,
right.
But Auden Tate, I'm a huge fan of this game, but that 4.68 40, 3 seconds slowest among wide receivers.
Yeah.
That's rough, man. I was hoping he would test how Courtland Sutton tested.
Yeah.
And it just did not go that way, but Auden Tate, he's a prototypical X receiver. I don't trust any other wide receiver more than I do Tate in a contested situation. You know, you hear the phrase kind of, you know, he turns a 50-50 ball into an 80-20 ball, and that legit is the case with Auden Tate. Another guy at 6'5", he has tremendous hip fluidity, tremendous body control. He looks so graceful when he's going up for the ball. He attacks it at the catch point, tremendous hand-eye coordination. He's only 21. I still love his upside, but you know, you want to see him kind of improve route running, although I still think he's pretty good there considering his size. And something people don't talk about with Auden Tate is blocking. I think he has a case to be the best blocking wide receiver in this draft.
You might have already answered the question I was going to ask you about Tate out of Florida State, and there's another comparison here. But if you literally just read his scouting report, you would legit think that you're reading about Calvin Benjamin. So what is that thing about Tate that makes you think he's a more complete receiver? Because literally what we saw out of Benjamin so far, that his rookie year when he had all the touchdowns, they were either short red zone jump balls or they were garbage time. A lot of those were garbage touchdowns. He hasn't really put it together. And then he got hurt, so that obviously didn't help. But what is it about Tate that makes you believe that maybe he can be Calvin Benjamin but better?
I think Benjamin, you know, I don't want to say Tate isn't restricted to just lining up the sideline, but I think Tate, he works in the middle of the field much better. I think he has more yak ability, and I think he's just despite combine testing, I think he's a better athlete than Benjamin.
Nice. All right, he was 4. Let's go on to number 5.
Number 5, DJ Chark. This is my boy from the Senior Bowl. I was actually down in Mobile. I had a chance to interview DJ Chark. I wrote a piece on him before the Senior Bowl, and I was lucky enough to talk to him. But this guy, he just showed up at the combine, showed how exciting he is with that 4.34 speed. I believe that was the fastest among any offensive player at the combine this year. His first touch in college was actually in the bowl game, his freshman year against Texas Tech. He took a 79-yard handoff to the house. It wasn't a catch, it was a handoff that he took to the house. I believe he also had I want to say it was against Ole Miss, he had a punt return touchdown late in the game that either tied it or to put him ahead. I forget what game it was, but just a clutch playmaker. He has the speed, just the burst, the size too. Prototypical height weight speed guy that you hear about come draft time. But you want to see him, you know, he's a really raw route runner. He looked decent in Mobile, but I wish he looked a little bit better than what he showed. Although in the game he was phenomenal, obviously,
right.
Senior Bowl MVP. But also his hands, you know, is really consistent. He traps the ball a lot. He's not going to attack it. And you just want to see him come down to this contested grab more and just use his size to his advantage.
Yeah, Chark has the measurables and the skills that you're looking for when you're drafting a wide receiver, but at LSU the numbers just weren't really there, similar to Calvin Ridley, and I think it was because of the situation he was in. So with that, not seeing that many targets, not having really the opportunity to showcase his skills, do you think that's going to limit the speed at which he's able to adapt to the next level, or is he kind of that prospect that you're drafting solely on like future potential, since we probably haven't seen his best yet?
Right. I think you are drafting him on potential. Like I've seen some mocks after the combine where mocking him as high as like the Panthers. I forget what pick they have exactly, but that just seems absurd to me. The thought of DJ Chark going in the first round, as much as I like him, he's definitely a day two guy, but he's just so raw. I think he has the mindset. You know, he's a great guy to talk to. I think he has his mindset on what he wants to accomplish, and I think he will accomplish his goals.
Nice. Let's go on to number 6. If it's the guy I think you have here, I'm gonna love this pick.
Antonio Callaway?
There it is.
Yes, sir. If not for all field, Antonio Callaway is my number 1 wide receiver.
Nice.
Like, this dude is insanely talented. The game just comes easy to him. You could tell. When I was watching his tape back in the summer, obviously he didn't play this year, and I was just astounded. Like, I had watched Tate beforehand, but Callaway was giving Tate a run for his money. I just said how much I like Tate, saying how much that means. But
right.
Antonio Callaway, you kind of get that Josh Gordon vibe. You know, is he going to be a dude who tears it up one year and then doesn't play again for 2 to 3 years? You know, but it'll be really interesting to see if he gets drafted, how early a team's willing to take a flyer on him. But just, I want to say, like, he's among the best route runners in the draft. He doesn't get enough credit there. Speed, obviously, I think it was a 4.48 at the combine. Just so silky smooth, in and out of his breaks. Just the total package, I think. He works all 3 levels of the field phenomenally. But the only thing you're not going to really see him blocking or going out of his way is physical. But that's fine when he can make big plays.
Right. As a Gators fan, I watched pretty much every game that Callaway played, and that's really probably not that all of an impressive of a stat, since he didn't play all that much due to his suspensions and everything. And I'm not saying that he's Antonio Brown, but that smoothness that you talked about with the route running and everything, he shows some Antonio Brown-like tendencies on the field.
Yeah.
And I think if
I like
he can...
that. It's funny that you say that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the picture on Twitter that they actually were hanging out together.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, I did not see that. But, man, it just... You can't help but like feel like it looks like Antonio Brown. It's probably a little bit to do with size as well, but just how smooth he is coming out of his breaks and his hands. The comparison is there. You'd think that, I mean, there's that potential, like you said, if he wouldn't have gotten in trouble, he could be the guy. How realistic, what kind of % chance do you give it that he could end up being the best receiver out of this entire draft class?
That's a very good question, and I think it's pretty strong. I mean, of course, if he keeps his head on straight, doesn't get in any trouble. If he stays on path and he is able to play these next 10 years, I think there's probably at least a 50% chance he's the best wide receiver out of this class.
Yeah, I like it as well. It's a little bit weaker of a position this year, so the door is there. The door's open, but we'll see. This is the one that I think is going to shock some people. Your number 7 guy.
You'll make some people mad.
Yeah, most likely.
But Courtland Sutton, you know, I was really, really low on him coming to the year. He was among my lowest graded receivers when I had like my preliminary top 15 graded. He was one of my lowest, but he shot up a little bit. That combine was phenomenal. I was kind of upset, like as I said earlier, I really wish that's how Auden Tate had tested. But Sutton, you saw major progression on field from 2016 to 2017. 2016, I kind of saw like a lazy player. You know, he wasn't getting full effort. But 2017, he turned it on. You know, I saw more burst, a lot more competitive toughness, and he used that size to his advantage a lot more, which you didn't really see in 2016.
Right.
The 3 cone really surprised me as well. 6'5", 7'10" is phenomenal at his size. I think he really has the upside to be a number 1 receiver in X. But, you know, I don't know, I'm not really completely sold on him. I think there's still a couple flaws to his game. You know, his route running can use some work, of course, at that size, but that's kind of expected. But that athleticism is phenomenal. Like you said, I'm a little bit lower on him than most, but it's just because I like the guys in front of him a little bit more.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because some people have him mocked as early as maybe to the Cardinals in the middle, the Ravens in the middle, maybe even the Cowboys in the late teens. What are others seeing out of him to warrant that mid-first round draft pick that you're just not quite so sure on? It leads you to have the other people ranked higher.
You know, I think a lot of people like him just because of the size and the testing. That was the big thing. I didn't think he was going to test that well at all, and that was a big surprise. So he had some big flashes during his 2016 year. He had a monster productive year. This past year, not as productive, but he just makes big plays, not as regularly as a guy like Auden Tate, I would say, but Sutton, you can hang with him, and he's got the profile that NFL teams like.
Right. Let's go on to your number 8 guy.
Yes, Richie James. This is my favorite slot receiver in the class.
Nice.
Just the definition of dynamic. This dude was so fun to watch. Anthony Miller, he gets a lot of hype as the most fun wide receiver to watch, but I think Richie James stole the crown. A lot of people are forgetting about him because he was hurt this past year, but if you go back and look at his production, 2015, 2016, I want to say he broke 1,400 yards both years, probably double-digit touchdowns. And this dude's 6 for 7 throwing the ball for 80 yards.
Yeah.
In his junior year, high school quarterback, as you know, just put the ball in his hands and make big plays. He plays a lot bigger than his size. He doesn't surprise you with his competitive toughness. And 9.1 yards per carry as well. So he can get you in a couple of different ways.
Yeah, his report sounds a lot like Jakeem Grant, who came out of Texas Tech a couple of years ago. I feel like by picking James, you're betting on the potential he has as an electric playmaker, but I feel like a lot of that comes down to being placed with coaches who know how to properly use him. So do you have a couple of teams in mind that maybe he could step in and be a good fit with?
The Patriots, of course, just
right
at me. I can't really think of teams to need a slot receiver. I mean, the Saints make a lot of sense, of course. They're like quick passing attack.
Yeah.
That's what I got right now. I'm trying to think of a better one before the show's over. But I like that question a lot because that's something I think about with all these guys. Obviously leading up to the draft, you just think of possible destinations, best fits. And Richie James, one of my favorite players, of course. I'm really intrigued to see where he lands.
Well, you look at a guy like Tyreek Hill in Kansas City, and he landed on a team that knew how to use him. A lot of the guys would just maybe use him more of a gadget player, but they lined him on the outside, and it's worked so far. Yeah. But then you look at Jakeem Grant, and he's had a couple of flash plays, but Miami hasn't quite figured out how to use him yet, and he really hasn't developed into anything where he kind of has that same skill set of a Tyreek Hill, but it just hasn't been there, and I think it's because the coaching staff doesn't quite know what they're doing with him yet. So that's my only fallback on him, is just because I feel like he has to go to the right situation, and the Saints and the Patriots would be ideal. So I don't think those are bad answers by any means.
I would also love to see him on the Eagles. I'll sign up for that all day.
There you go.
Even though we got Nelson Aguilar in the spot, give me Richie James. I don't care.
Nice. You can have 2 guys. Injuries happen. Let's move on to number 9.
Yeah, Kane. This one might surprise a few people, but Kane, he's a project. I don't think he quite has the upside of DJ Chark, just because Chark's bigger, he's faster, stronger. But Kane, I think he has Deshaun Jackson-like potential as a deep threat. I think he's one of the best deep threats in the class, Just the inconsistent hands, you're going to see him drop a lot of balls, which is made to turn off, Kind of reminds me of Will Fuller a few years ago. I was big on him. I think Kane's a little bit better athlete. You see great route running from him. He attacks the second level extremely well, and then just, of course, has the speed and the ability to put it over the top.
Right. There was a ton of hype around Kane while Mike Williams was there, and they were playing with Deshaun Watson back a couple years ago. Why do you think the hype has died down a little bit surrounding Kane? And do you believe that, Clemson receivers are the hot thing right now? Like, you get a Clemson receiver and he is producing. Do you think he's going to join that, or do you think he might be like a lower echelon?
Well, I think the hype kind of died down because, people were expecting to step up as that true number one,
Right.
Over from Mike Williams, and that really just didn't happen. He makes some big splash plays during the year, but, you could say Hunter Renfrow was even more an effective pass weapon, or more reliable at least than Kane. And the follow-up question, I don't think he really has the potential of, DeAndre Hopkins or Sammy Watkins or whatever Clemson wide receiver you want to throw out there. I really like his potential, though, but I just don't think it's as high as the other guys who have recently come out. But as I said, I think Deshaun Jackson, you could have that type of impact for that 3 or 4 year window where he's just a dynamic guy. I don't think he'll be quite to that level, but I think he brings that type of impact.
Nice. Well, let's go on to your actual number 10 guy, who's not Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is number 1, by the way. He's my number 1 as well, so I'm happy with that. You shocked me right there with 10. I was like, geez, I know there's some anti-Ridley people, but that's extreme. So let's go on to your real number 10.
Cedric Wilson, I don't know, man. I haven't met the second rounder. He didn't really wow me in Mobile. None of the receivers really did. But with Wilson on tape, the competitive toughness is by far his best trait. And like I said with Pettis, Wilson's also a well-rounded guy. You won't see many flaws with him. Not quite the athlete that Pettis is, but he kind of brings a similar flavor to the table. NFL bloodline, his father. I don't think he has a relationship with his father, but his father, Cedric Wilson, formerly the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep.
I'm sure a bunch of you listeners remember him in the Super Bowl days with Ben Roethlisberger back when he was in his younger days. But with Wilson, oftentimes on tape, you see him that quick slant, and he just takes that ball to the house or picks up so much yak. And I think that's an ability with Wilson that many people don't talk about is his yak ability, because he's not the fastest guy, but he's going to run over some people and he's going to carry the pile and play to the whistle. And that's something you love to see out of these receivers, especially some guy. I think Wilson has a really high floor. I don't think he has a high ceiling, but definitely a high floor and could be a reliable guy in his third round or so.
Yeah, and I believe he actually only has a couple of years actually playing the receiver position, so there's definitely...
Right, yeah, he was also a quarterback.
Quarterback, yeah. So there's definitely some room to grow there for him. But I wanted to ask you about another receiver, so I'll kind of tie it into this one. Why do you pick a guy like Wilson or even your number 9 guy, Deion Kane, over a guy like Michael Gallup out of Colorado State, which a lot of people are high on?
Yeah, I was so high on Gallup. I actually had Gallup and Wilson as top 5 receivers heading into Mobile. But watching Gallup practice, man, it was terrible. No effort at all. He was getting clamped rep after rep by Isaac Iadom of Boston College. Didn't really see, he struggled so much off the line that really got me worried regarding his ability working against press. Obviously, he'd probably be a Z receiver, so we wouldn't have to rely on that so much. But I like Gallup. He's a really good player, solid all around, but his testing didn't really do it for me, and just his performance in Mobile was such a turnoff. It was putrid.
Yeah, we've seen receivers, like, I think instantly when I think of people that struggle to get off the line, like a Devontae Parker or a Mike Williams. I mean, they have all the potential in the world, but if they can't get their routes going, and if the way pass rush has become such a dominant thing in the NFL, like, these guys aren't having the time to really get to the top of their route and be quite as effective. So that is a knock on Gallup. What I loved about Gallup is once he does catch the ball, he creates after the catch by going straight, which is beautiful. You see a lot of receivers that catch the ball and then they look to go sideways to create. He goes up the field, gets his yards, and then he's making people miss. And it's some of the best, like, after the catch that I've seen of any of the people in this draft. Do you agree with that, or are there other guys that I might be missing?
I think DJ Moore and Calvin Ridley probably have better yak ability, as we talked about. Gallup, I definitely like his yak ability as well. He's definitely up there. I would say probably top 5 in the class, but I think there's some guys who are just a little bit better than him in that aspect. But I hope I'm not being too harsh on Gallup. You know, he played great against Alabama. He had a good performance against Isaiah Oliver this past year, who's actually my CB1 right now, my top cornerback in the class. But just watching, like I just said, watching Gallup practice was a huge turnoff, and I hope I'm not being too harsh on him.
No, that's there. You see it firsthand, and obviously that's a big thing. If they can't trust you in practice, they're not going to throw you in a game.
Right.
One other guy I was going to ask you about, because when I was watching this guy, I saw a little bit of Santonio Holmes. I liked the way he caught the ball with his hands. And the guy I'm talking about here is Texas A&M's Christian Kirk. Do you think he has an opportunity to contribute early, or a lot of people see him more of like a special teamer, returner? Do you think he's got an opportunity maybe to crack your top 10 at some point, or do you see him more of a special teams guy?
I actually have Kirk as my 12th receiver, which isn't a slight on him, you know. Ridley's my only first-round grade receiver. Then my 2 to 10 ranked receivers are all second-rounders, and then after that I have James Washington, and then Christian Kirk at 12, and they're both third-rounders for me. But Kirk, I think he's a plug-and-play. You know, I don't think he has a high ceiling or anything. Like, he was getting comparisons to Odell Beckham back in the preseason, which was insanity. Like, I don't really understand how people got that. But anyway, Kirk, he's a pure slot guy. Really good quickness off the snap, off the line. Sudden footwork. I love his deceptive feet. But I just don't think, you know, I think he'll be a productive receiver for maybe 7 years or so, but he's never going to be that number 1 guy, you know. That he was hyped up to be early in the season, but that's not to say that he's not a playmaker, because I saw him make some big plays against Arkansas, I believe it was this past year. I believe he scored a game-winning touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. But I just don't think Kirk really has the high ceiling to kind of compare to guys like Deion Kane or Ricky James.
Yeah, I forgot who it was against, but he made a pretty sick one-handed catch. So that's probably where the Odell Beckham thing came from. People see one highlight, and it's like, oh, he's Odell because he caught the ball with 3 fingers. But
anyone makes a one-handed catch,
he's Odell. Yeah, exactly. Let's pump out a couple of quick listener questions, and then I've got some rapid fires for you.
Cool, let's do it.
All right. Go ahead and name the top receiver out of Notre Dame. Correct enunciation.
Equanimous St. Brown.
Ooh, you knocked that one out of the park. What's more important, his on-field performance or those who can correctly pronounce that name?
That's tough, man. Probably the pronunciation I'd have to go with.
I'm right there with you. Another listener question.
You gotta get it down.
Right. Another listener question. What team that most people are overlooking is most likely to pull off a big trade on draft day?
I don't know if people are particularly overlooking them, but the Arizona Cardinals, I don't think they're getting enough talk. There's been leaks that they're interested in Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or whomever it may be. But I think they're definitely in the market for a quarterback. I don't even remember who they picked up. I remember they picked up a stopgap.
Yeah, Sam Bradford.
Sam McCarron. Oh, Sam Bradford, right. So I think they definitely want to get a fresh arm in there. I wouldn't be surprised if they at least made an effort to trade up into the top 5 and snag one of those top quarterbacks.
That's literally who I had written down to answer that as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Patriots, they're all getting talked about as maybe moving up. And I've said since day one, I'm just like, you know what, the Cardinals should be doing the same thing. I don't know if they have the ammunition that a team like the Bills do.
Say, right. They
but
have to give up a lot of future picks. I would say at least their first this year and a first next year at least, plus probably another 2 or 3 and then some.
Right, and what we're seeing though is, this is probably the year to do it because you have this many quarterback prospects.
This draft is going to be absolutely insane. I cannot wait for it.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Let's go on to rapid fire. You know how this works. Here we go. Wide receiver with the best hands in the draft.
Oh man, I know it's rapid fire, but you call me off guard.
This is anti-rapid fire.
Yeah, it's anti-rapid fire. Give me. I'm gonna go off the radar and go Cam Phillips, just to spice it up a little bit.
All right. Nice. Next one. Hottest girl from a 1990s sitcom.
What was that?
Hottest girl from a 1990s sitcom.
Oh man, Jennifer Aniston.
Well,
sitcom, right?
Yeah, we'll let it slide. Wide receiver to most likely to make the most immediate impact.
Calvin Ridley.
Wide receiver who struggled in the combine who will be just fine in the NFL.
Auden Tate.
What is wrong with Brandon Cooks? Why do teams keep trading him?
Honestly, my beef with it is why are teams getting up first-round picks for him? That's my big question from this. Because your question's kind of messed up, but if you think about it, honestly, it's why do teams, like I said, why do teams love Brandon Cooks?
Right.
First-round picks for him. That's what I don't understand.
I like it. I like your answering my question with a question answers it perfectly.
Right.
Say no more.
Yeah, I've been this podcast. I apologize. It's been all over the place.
No worries. All right, next one. Top thing you look for from a college receiver when trying to predict future NFL success.
Route running, ability to create separation.
Where would last year's top 3 receivers, we're talking about Corey Davis, Mike Williams, and John Ross, where would they rank in this year's class?
Ooh, that's tough, man. I was a huge Mike Williams guy. I think I would stick with him at 1. I would probably put Corey Davis at 3, sandwiched between Ridley. Then John Ross, I would have way down there, man. I had the wide receiver 3 or 4, but I just like Pettis more, like Tate more, like Chark more, like Callaway more. So maybe at 7 in front of Sutton.
I'm with you. I was not a huge Ross fan. Loved Corey Davis, though. Next one. Are people who write in cursive weird?
Oh, they're weird unless they're signing something, of course.
Nice answer. I didn't see that one coming. Your best guess. How many wide receivers go in the first round?
2 or 3. I'll go with 2. I'll say Courtland Sutton and Calvin Ridley.
Sutton and Ridley.
DJ Moore has a shot, though. There's going to be no more than 3 taking the first round.
All right, there's his bold prediction. Next one here. Wide receiver with the biggest fantasy football impact as a rookie.
I said Calvin Ridley would make it the most immediate impact, and I'll stick with him for this answer because I think he'll be the most productive. DJ Moore can give him run for his money, though.
All right, and last but certainly not least, weird or not weird, sharing earbuds with another person?
Unless it's a significant other, excuse me, it's weird.
I had to throw that one in at the end because John's
I don't do earwax. I don't do wet willies or anything like that. With ears, so.
I had to bring it up because John has to use his phone today to connect to us, and I was seeing if he had earbuds because we know his volume's a little bit low, but he said that his wife might have them, so I needed to throw that one in there at the end.
Yeah, I apologize to the listeners for my poor quality. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry, and I hope you still enjoy the podcast.
Nice. Thank you very much for coming on. John, we'll have to do this again sometime for sure. We'll get the kinks worked out, and we'll do this. For the listeners, as always, tweet any questions you'd like answered on the podcast on Twitter at Loaded Box. Check out the website for our latest blogs, the ones I talked about. We got fantasy football rankings on there. LoadedBoxPodcast.wordpress.com. Our next episode, I don't know when it'll be, but it'll be the best one we've ever done. And we're on iTunes by searching The Loaded Box. Subscribe, rate, and review. And John, why don't you go ahead and say something enlightening to send us out?
The Philadelphia Flyers lost 7-0 yesterday, and I'm really upset about it. I know that wasn't kind of what you were looking for, but I tried to get that out there. I'm just really torn up inside about it right now.
This guy and his Philadelphia references.